over to Duran, who is going to give us some flavor on his project. Just do that. Oops, I forgot that one.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to echo, I'm super hyped to see a packed house.
Yeah.
This is dope. So yeah, my name is Duran Chavis. I am the founder director of an organization called Happily Natural Day. I'm also a founding board member for the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons. My arc of work with the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons is I've been in this conversation since the beginning, right? Since their initial conversations. So today I'm just gonna kind of run through a little bit about what that work has looked like. For us, it's been about a 3-year, I think, like at least a 3-year process, but there's a little bit more that comes before that. So just allow me to reintroduce myself a little bit. So I'm a native Richmonder. I was born on the south side of Richmond, Virginia. Those who are aware of like this country's history with settler colonialism, you know that Virginia is ground zero for this American experiment of dispossession and land extraction, right? The part of town that I grew up on has been disinvested in and benign neglect. During the 70s, the south side of Richmond was annexed into the city to dilute black political power in the city, right? So great migration is occurring all across the country. Black people are moving into cities. In Richmond, Virginia, they're moving predominantly into south side. The powers that be saw this mass influx of black folks and said, oh my God, they might be able to take over the government. And so they said, okay, we're gonna annex a whole nother part of the surrounding county and bring it into the city of Richmond. So, you know, really, you know, nefarious gerrymandering before we knew that term. But it resulted in the city going to the Supreme Court, like activists in Richmond, Virginia took this shit to the Supreme Court, ended up winning, right? So the city of Richmond can no longer annex any new property into its proper. So it's 60 square miles. It has to stay 60 square miles as a result of this, you know, this ish. Growing up on South Side, you know, because of that benign neglect, also because of redlining, you know, we experienced those systemic aspects of racism that we see. You know, urban heat island effect is major issue in formerly redline neighborhoods. You know, it's literally hotter. My homie had these, what do you call it, thermo temperature goggles, you know what I mean? Maybe like 3 weeks ago, it was like 90-something degrees in the city. And the side of town that I'm from, like, he had the goggles pointed at the ground. It's 130 degrees in the hood, right? When we go to like the West End, which is the more affluent white part of the city, you know, this is where Monument Avenue, if you heard about like all the shit that was going down with the Confederates when they took down the monuments, all that shit is in the West End, right? Where the white folks stay. You go over there and put the thermal glasses on, and it's 80 degrees. You feel me? So, you know, that's just one aspect. Of course, you know, food access is affected. It's also the same maps with the mass evictions that occurred during, you know, not only the post-pandemic, but even subprime lending back in 2008. And, you know, I can go on and on and on about the intersectional inequities that these communities face. So that's my cauldron. Right, I'm born on the South Side. I'm living through these experiences, not really understanding what is going on. But I took my first job at the Black History Museum and Cultural Center to understand, right, what was going on in my own community. And it was through my volunteering at the Black History Museum that I was able to found an organization called Happily Natural Day. It was actually a festival that we launched during the 50th year anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. In that festival, this Black liberation space that we created, we were blessed to meet Black farmers. They came into the space selling produce and things like that, and they became my OGs, like elders, you know, wise counsel, right? They took me under the wing and, you know, helped me understand the importance of food security security, right? And also help me understand a lot of the issues that have been happening around discrimination with the USDA, et cetera. But our initial work, was doing this festival every year, and then we started working with the farmers, selling produce in community, right? Literally connecting those black farmers to formerly redline neighborhoods, selling their produce on their behalf, right? These guys were in there, I'm probably like at the time like 25, 26, something like that. These are men in their 60s and their 70s that are driving 400 pounds of produce into the city every week, right? And I'm kicking it with them on a Saturday in the middle of the park or at a community center trying to get these vegetables off. So of course you're gonna talk about, farming, if you with an elder farmer, right? And in those conversations I started feeling a little guilty because, I have, at that time, this is not the case anymore, I had a relatively good back. And, these guys were a little older, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if something happened to you, this whole program basically go to shit. So I started to be like, I gotta start growing some things, you know what I mean? That's sustainable, to make the program sustainable. At the same time, I worked at social services. I was the food stamp guy. So, when you wanted to get Medicaid, cash assistance, emergency assistance, I the guy that you sat in front of, right? And I did your interview. So I'm like, okay, we want to do these gardens, we're selling these produce, we're doing these CSA shares. I need to go and create a space that we can start growing some stuff. So that's where my story starts in this urban ag space. First selling vegetables on behalf of black farmers and then developing green spaces on my own, right? So yeah, that's kind of the roots of my story. Our organization currently manages 8 urban gardens and farms across our region. Pictured here is Sankofa Community Orchard. It's a 5-acre demonstration. We call it a food justice and climate resiliency demonstration. At Sankofa, we not only grow food, we have like over 120 fruit trees that we planted in this space since COVID. I mean, we started working on the project January 2021. But we also provide training. So we run a fellowship, a 12-week course, and a 5-week boot camp. And so my goal with this work has been, we need to grow more growers, because, and they need to be from the communities that are disproportionately impacted by lack of access to healthy food. So I'm literally in the hood like, we need to have control over our food system because the grocery store ain't coming, right? I mean, I don't know what y'all know about food access stuff, but the grocery store don't want to go in the hood because they're not going to make no money, right? And then there's some, the reason why they're not going to make no money is all this other stuff that has happened in the past, right? So our conversation is like, well, what did communities do before there was a highway or refrigerated trucks, right? Because this is a recent phenomenon, right? Was it refrigerated truck is like 1930 something, right? And the highway is 1950 something. So before 1950, did people eat food? And so if the answer to that is yes, well, how did they get food? They were proximate to their farmer, right? They knew who their farmer. Everybody wasn't a farmer, but everybody knew who the farmer was, right? Because either that guy's bringing the food into the city, or you live in a peri-urban situation, and you're able to connect like that. So essentially, my story with this work is, one of the challenges of trying to establish that black-owned and controlled food system in Richmond, Virginia. Okay? And along with that is, issues of land tenure, right? The challenges as a beginning farmer trying to start a new farm. Anybody that farms knows that you need at least 2 years, at least 3 years to get your soil right, just in terms of growing something consistently. And then of course, you got to get your practices, what's your standard operating procedure, you need to get your infrastructure, your tools, equipment, and all that shit. That shit don't just come when you start, you know what I'm saying? So, along the way, we've started farms that got hit by the pressures of development, you know what I mean? The owner would be like, this is dope. Y'all cut the trees down and kind of cleared the space, but you know, I'm about to slang this. You got 80K? And like, man, where? I mean, I ain't got it in a mattress. I mean, I want to keep going here, but I ain't got the kind of bank to, you know, to check this type of pressure. And then also like shady owners that want to up the rent after a year or two. You know, I had one guy, we cleared the whole site. He was on some old handshake shit. We was real cool and thought everything was good. And as soon as he saw I was getting a little grant money, he was like, yo, I want $600 a month for me to farm on this property. Like, man, you crazy? That's an apartment. Like, you know what I mean? I can't live here. I mean, but anyway, so that's the phenomenon that I experienced. And so our work now today has been about how do we create wide runways for BIPOC food system stakeholders, activists, urban farmers, so that they can have access to land and not have to go into debt trying to farm, right, or trying to establish their food-based business using this local food stuff. Yeah. So that brings us to the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons. So been doing this work, right before COVID hits. There's a conference in Richmond, Virginia, the Biological Farming Conference. And any of y'all that farm know that those are pretty white spaces. You know, if you're a black person in the middle of like a urban, inside of a ag conference, regenerative ag conference, you probably like one of the few people in that space. So we saw the Agrarian Trust there a couple years in a row. I used to be on the board for that organization and all that type of stuff. But you know, just made a mental note, oh, this is an organization that's trying to remove land from the real estate market. Okay, cool. I didn't really see how that would connect with me because I'm in the city, you know, I just didn't see how it connected. But later I would join a community land trust board, and so I could understand the concept of a nonprofit organization holding land to make sure that express this new direction, right? This idea of trying to get black and brown people access to land. So I was like, oh, ears perked up. I've lost land. I've, you know, been kicked off of land or whatever. So these guys is talking about buying land and giving it to black folks. I'm all ears. What's up? So I took the contact information from them and, you know, put it in my back pocket. At the same time, there was a white woman from rural Virginia, Amelia County, is about an hour away from Richmond. Her name is Callie Walker. Callie is one of those Presbyterian, Quaker women, you know what I mean, social justice-esque, but she's also like a preacher. She ain't had no kids, and her and her husband living on this land. They were like, yo, when we pass away, we want to give this land to a black farmer. I was like, word, okay. But I was like, word, but how, right? Yeah. First, you know, how do you make that decision? Like, you just gonna roll up on a dude and be like, yo, you want to farm? You know what I'm saying? I was like, this is crazy. So she's in the workshop too, right? And so she says, you know, she connects with the people too. She asks her questions in the space. You know, it's an older white woman, so I was like, yeah, this is crazy. Later, I called the folks from the Agrarian Trust, like, yo, I heard y'all said y'all was really about that life in terms of like giving land on some reparative justice stuff to black folks. Like, what up? I mean, like, I think we can make something happen. I'm on the board for Community Land Trust here in the city. Like, what's up? How can we make this work? And they was like, yeah, but and Callie Walker was at the meeting too. She has these 80 acres that she's trying to donate. Like, how can we put y'all into conversation? So I was like, yeah, I'm down to ride on this. Let's see what's up. And what happens is that we get on a conference call and the decision is made that we will form a C2 in the beginning, that we will collaborate with the Agrarian Trust and do this thing. So from the jump, our goal was to address issues of land access and tenure for black farmers in urban as well as rural spaces. I'm an agrarian, but I grew up in apartments, you know what I mean, in the city. So I don't have a reference point for like, I'm gonna go out in the rural Virginia and just be off the grid. Like, that's not my reality, right? I know public transit, you know what I'm saying? I know I can catch a cab, like where I need to go. I ride a bike to where I need to go, I'm good, right? we had intense debates in the early stages of this about like, okay, everybody needs to get out of the city and become more agrarian. Tough conversations. The reality for me is I know a lot of black people that ain't going back to rural anywhere. And where I live at, rural is like Trump country. You know what I'm saying? So you go down the street, they got Confederate flags, you will not take my guns, Trump is being railroaded, all this stuff on the side of the road. So it's like, I don't even want to be out here after dark. If our car break down out here, I'm shook, you know what I mean? So we were very clear that we needed to create systems of connectivity between farmers, black farmers in rural Virginia, as well as aspiring black farmers in urban space. And just building these systems so that, the market is in the city, right? So, have space in the rural, so how do we get the space that's in the rural with all that scale and production that can be done, get that stuff into the city, specifically building these black-owned systems. Like I said, we started with the C2 deal, but we were a little bit more sophisticated. Even in our conversation, the first people that were on our board, everybody basically either ran a nonprofit or had been farming for years. So we didn't really need a lot of support. What we did need was that proximity to whiteness and wealth. You dig what I'm saying? And that manifested early in the work. We're like, y'all gonna buy some property? I'm looking, right? Found like 4 or 5 places, we chose one. They started the fundraiser in June of 2022. They put the purchase option on it, $20K for a farm in Petersburg, Virginia. And in 2 months, raised $220,000 for a purchase that would, for the value where the land was sold at 160. So we had like another 60K that we used to do farm development. At the same time, Agrarian Trust assisted with the legal work necessary to get the land transferred from Cali Walker, because that's surveys, it's fees and all that type of shit. They did all that, you know what I mean? So September 2022, now we got 85 acres, in the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons as a, act of reparative justice. So the 80-acre land donation, again, our mission as an organization is to redistribute land to black and brown food system stakeholders. So our first thought was like, we got 80 acres, boom, what are we gonna do with this 80 acres? It's a lot of land. I don't know if y'all know. All y'all know like acres and shit. Like I went on 10 acres, I was like, shit, this is a lot of fucking land. But 80 of them bad boys was whoa. So we said, all right, we're gonna definitely make sure that this land is broken up and folks can get a plot, 1 to 3 acres. The issue was, okay, well, how do we get people on the land, get them proximate to it? So we try to change up the zoning. And this is when we found out this is Trump country for real, because the white folks came out in droves. I mean, like a line out the door to be like, hell no, we ain't trying to see this communist effort. They're gonna be bringing Latino folks out here, and none of the people at social services speak Spanish. And one lady, she lived on a 40-acre plot, and she was like, I want to be able to walk out of my property and know my neighbors. I'm like, you ain't walking nowhere. You got 40 acres. Where you going? There ain't nowhere to go. You know what I'm saying? It's like you gonna walk around your little circle of your on your property and you be tired going in and out. So the zoning kind of blocked us, the idea of us doing multiple houses on the property. So we had to reevaluate that and came up with the idea to do a bed and breakfast on the property to serve as a long-term, short-term stay for folks that are going to be farming on the property. So we are at that stage of site design and all that type of stuff, about to launch the capital campaign for it. So this is the land, or this is just a portion of the drone shot that I got of the land.
Jerome, is that family still there?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Callie lives next door.
Okay.
So
okay.
she has her parcel, and then right next door is the 80
Okay.
acres. 35 of it is under forest, and all is clear and flat. So the Petersburg property though is the urban aspect, and it's really since I run the training program, I'm real big about not dangling carrots in front of people. You know what I mean? So I was like, yo, if you really want to do this, I'm gonna train you. I'm gonna give you all the insight, the patterns, the principles that you need in order to build soil fertility and all the whole shit, how to run your farm operation and even design it. But if you really want to do it, we got this Petersburg property here that we're giving you a 1/4 acre to go ahead and get your action popping, right? Stay there for a year, 3 years, and if you really, figure out how to rock this, then we can get you over to the Amelia property where you can get 3 to 5 acres and really expand and scale up. You know what I mean? So the Petersburg property is 5 acres. It's an educational space. It's an incubator farm. Right now we have 4 farmers that are on the property. One of which is one of my former students, and 2 others are other farmers that have been farming in the area, and one guy that I just met through him volunteering in the work. So everybody's got a lease. You know what I mean? We ain't asking people to pay. We be like, yo, all right, what's your skill? You know what I mean? Contribute your skill to the development of this project, and that's your payment for working the land. You know what I mean? And so it's going good so far. We got a cobot on there, community kitchen, a tiny house for the chickens is dope. So yeah, this is the land. So we own from the street here all the way to the tree line at the back, and it came with a greenhouse on it, well water. It had been worked before, but we're improving the soil on it and just kind of rocking out. So
Can I ask you a question to clarify something?
yeah.
So both properties are part of the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted.
Yes, both properties are. I be trying to do the video thing. I never can get that shit right. So anyway, there's a little video flyover drone thing, and you can see that on my website. So yeah, I throw this slide in here because it kind of breaks down our relationship. This is the part that is real for me. During George Floyd rebellions, everybody want to talk about being an ally, right? I say I love the fact that y'all want to take the class on racial justice and the DEI and all that type of stuff. We got a million definitions of equity, but when the rubber hits the road, what we talking about is transfer of capital and resources to Black and brown communities. Yeah. If we ain't talking about that, we ain't really talking. We just jibber jabbering, you know what I'm saying? It just sounds good. We all feel really well. We do the kumbaya circle, we hug and shit, and I'm still broke, you know what I'm saying? So what I loved about this experience with the Agrarian Trust is like, irrespective of whatever happened, like they came to me and said, yo, this is what we're gonna do, and they did it. You know what I mean? And my energy has always been like, yo, we can have a long-term relationship. My mom always told me that people come into your life for a reason, season, you know what I'm saying? So if they want to keep riding with us and we get this money, we do what we got to do in order to acquire more properties, then boom, let's go. But if it stops simply with the transfer of that 80 acres and the 5 acre purchase, totally good. We did what we came to do, and we keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? As an organization, our work, it changed the game for us. Because we did our first conservation easement on the 5 acres. We did 4 of those 5 on a conservation easement. And as a social justice organization, to be able to do that type of transaction and get $225,000 infused into your organization that you can do whatever you need to do with, I have a different conversation with philanthropy now. Because now I'm like, yo, I'm gonna do this anyway. I would love for you to be a part of what we're already gonna do. It's not like, yo, can you give me a grant or whatever, hopefully let's build a relationship. It's like, nah, this is going down. We got the money. Would you like to match? Because we can do it faster. That's the energy that we are able to calibrate now. And then we're also able to support, staff and the infrastructure needs. So, the way the stuff flows, Agrarian Trust, they basically put us in front of the people with the money. You know what I mean? And then they put the money up where it needed to be put up, and then they helped us with the legal support. And those type of really tangible, practical applications, is, you know, that's all we were saying during the whole thing. Is like, yo, we just need reparations, and that was a really clear form of reparations. Not gonna go into all that. The big picture considerations. Okay, the CLT owns the land in perpetuity. So for folks that are looking to get equity in the land, this ain't the situation for you. You know what I mean? And I got to keep that on the front end with people. It's like, yo, this is like if you wanted to do a CLT home, like a community land trust home. The community land trust purchases the land, and then you buy the house, the above ground improvements. You own that. You get the equity out of that. You know, this is great for your starter home. I had to break this shit down to people all the time. Like, this ain't the situation that you stay at for the rest of your life. You go ahead and get this. Of course, the property value is going to increase when you sell. You split it, and then you go out and buy the thing that you really want, because you shouldn't have to always be underneath somebody. But with this, it's like with the farmer, we had to explain it too. It's like, yo, this is, we have a real relationship with like sharecropping. That's like, nah, I'm not trying to farm somebody else's land. I'm putting all this work into it. But we also have an experience with collective ownership that's necessary to reinforce, right? And build a muscle memory of what it means for us to work in common, right? And have a shared space that we're all, accountable to. And so with the farmers, I'm like, boom, this is an incubator farm. You know what I mean? Come over here, you can do your thing. If you want to do a 99-year lease, let's go. But if you only want to rock out here for a couple years while you get your ish in order, you get your relationship established with the USDA, got your farm track number, you go ahead and start filing your Schedule F, and you can document that you actually know how to farm and that you can access some of these other programs. This is the way to go, where you ain't gotta get a mortgage or a lease on a piece of property and be scrambling trying to figure out how you're gonna pay your mortgage, as well as refine your practice. Because that's the big, you step out here trying to farm, you need a year, at least, with nobody that you gotta pay, so you can figure this shit out. You know what I'm saying? But so we basically offering that up for folks. But the real conversation about equity is a challenge, because it's like, how do we make sure that folks get their equity? So it's like on a farm, you can build pole barn or high tunnel or a greenhouse and shit like that. But how do people get equity out of that is a challenge. And then of course, irrespective of who you are, if you farm on land, you're building up the soil, and you can take the soil with you when you go somewhere, but that's a whole challenge by itself. So how do we make sure people feel good about that? The other issue has been access to capital for the above ground improvements. The conservation easement conversation kind of knocked that back for us as far as the Petersburg property. We're just waiting on the money now. We did take out like some no interest loans to just kind of get the work going. So that was cool based off the pledge. The housing piece is still a struggle. So we kind of landed on glamping tents and things like that. I was just in the workshop where they're like, hell nah, no glamping tents, no yurts in the conservation easement. I was like, I don't know how to get the people on the land any other way, so we gotta figure that out. And then the most important is that this work it has required, it's always required, but even more so now, is requiring deep levels of transparency, and trust building. This should sound like fifth grade when we're talking to little kids, like, yeah, share, tell the truth, be nice. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like the stuff that you expect people to come to the space already knowing, we gotta reiterate that shit, because people don't be knowing. People come in and they just thinking about themselves. Like, no, we are in a collective. We are together. So you can't do toxic shit. You're trying to get $5 grand from the philanthropy. You can't step on the other guy to get the $5 grand, because then you mess up the ecosystem, because people are. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's my trauma coming out. So I'm gonna close out. This is one project that we're working on, but it's also we have numerous. This is the second. This is the Bensley Agri-Hood. So, this is not a project that I'm in collaboration with the Agrarian Trust with, but it's just another example of us taking ownership of land. 9 acres on the outskirts of Richmond. We're building a neighborhood, affordable housing, 10 affordable homes, 4 tiny homes, a wellness center, and a farm as an amenity for the neighborhood. So this project is really dope. I'm excited about it because we've already raised maybe like $2 million. We got USDA planning grant last year, so we're in year 1 of that, and we got some designs down for the farm and everything. So it's really rolling. It's actually happening. And yeah, it's imperative for us to figure out how we do both of these things. I mean, I reference New Communities, Inc., all the time, and I have to explain to people like this is a Black liberation strategy. You know what I mean? The Community Land Trust movement owes Shirley Sherrod and Charles Sherrod an incredible debt because of the work that they've done down in Georgia. It laid the groundwork for what we're doing. Like, I mean, you might talk about other people and all these other things, but they were in the trenches in Georgia after the Civil Rights Act passes. They stayed in Georgia, you know what I mean? And it's a big part of the arc of justice for Black and brown people. After the Voting Rights Act passes, everybody thinks everything was good. Everybody went home and it was, we all sang Kumbaya, the fire was lit, marshmallows and s'mores. But what you really find is that after that, Black and brown community organizations were focusing on land, right? So you got Fannie Lou Hamer, right? And Freedom Farms Cooperative outside of Jackson, Mississippi. You got Charles and Shirley Sherrod with New Communities, Inc. in Georgia. You got the Republic of New Africa. You have all of these organizations that are really clear that that Black people need space and autonomy to practice self-determination, right? And that the policy stuff with the laws and everything was all that work was to make sure that we were able to do these type things, So yeah, I just want to throw that in there as well. And yeah, that's my time.